Okay, well, thank you everybody for attending the Lanesville Quarry and Trails Forum. Today is March 25th. It's at 4:30 and we're really excited to be here. It's probably the nicest day that we've had in a long time, and that seems appropriate to be talking about something that's so near and dear to us. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce everyone that is on the panel. First of all, Mayor Safathia Romeo Taken. Thank you, Mayor. It's great to see you and to have you on the call. We have Police Chief Ed Conley. We have our Chief Administrative Officer, Nicole Keyser. We have our Assistant CAO, Chris Sucaranza. And we have Les Bartlett, who is a historian and photographer and very popular amongst everyone in Lanesville. He's done so many talks at the Lanesville Community Center that he just knocks it out of the park with his knowledge of granite and the quarry. So it's an honor for you to be here. I'm happy Joanne Sinos, our city clerk, is here. And I think that's all that I see for officials. We have right now 32 attendees, which is great to see. And I know that we have members of the Open Space Committee that are on the call as well, which we're really excited that they are joining us, because they're a major part of all the changes that we make in the city, or all that matters going on with our open space. So that's awesome. So welcome all. Now we're up to 34 attendees. So what I would just like to mention is that the mayor does have a hard stop tonight because she's got an important National Honor Society meeting at Gloucester High. What we're going to do is I'm going to just briefly go through the agenda, and then we are going to let the mayor do the intro remarks and give us kind of an overview of where we are in the quarry. So Chris, would you go to the agenda slide? Thank you. Great. So today we're going to begin by talking a little bit about why we are here, and the mayor will lead that conversation. And then Les Bartlett is going to do an overview of why do we value our quarries and our history. And he's got some pretty neat photos, historical photos of our quarries. And I think you'll all enjoy seeing those. And then I'm going to walk everyone through what we've learned from residents and abutters. And we will integrate some of the parts of the survey that we've asked people to fill out. And also I'll reflect on the focus groups that we had last September at Plum Cove Beach, where we started this listening process. And then our police chief, Ed Conley, is going to give us some highlights of enforcement for the summer of 2021. And we'd like to have almost an hour just based on questions and answers from the attendees in the survey. So what that means is that everyone wrote an open-ended question, or many people on the Google Doc survey, and we will reflect on one of those questions, and then we'll ask you in the audience right now, who are attendees, now up to 40, to use the Q&A button and send in a question at that point. So we're excited about that, and I do want everyone to know that this meeting is being recorded, and it will be on the website as early as tomorrow. So we're excited to have the assistance from IT and administration to make sure that this session is available for people that weren't able to be here. So at this point, I'm going to ask that we get rid of the slides and we listen to our mayor of Gloucester, Mayor Safathia Romeo Taken. Thank you, and take it away, Mayor.
Well, I can see that Chris put this together because I can see an old picture. Thank you, Chris. First of all, welcome everyone. Just so you know what is happening today with this. I agreed to a forum. It's to listen to Leslie to get some more education on the quarries, is to address some of the concerns that we can, because we can't address concerns fully because we're in the process and plan of making our plans for the summer. Also, so you know that there's going to be, and thank you to the Open Space and Recreational, they are doing Gloucester engaged planners Courtney Lewis and Mark Rackcott, I believe, for most of the plans production is common in municipalities. They are doing 2 public forums. The first forum will be April 26th to introduce the public to this discussion around open space, recreation, offering regional demographic data, and then Gloucester from the previous plans that produced. And then on May 10th, you're going to observe the committee and survey questions. So there's going to be an official survey coming out with the open space and recreational, because remember, we have so many in the whole city of Gloucester, and we have a committee that's going to be doing that. And then May 24th to June 30th, the second forum is scheduled actually for June 21st. They're going to get all the information and let us know. And they, I mean, I was on it last night and that really impressed me. I want to thank the team, especially with the leadership with Adrian Lennon and Joe Cahill. Is just amazing, because there's so many things that the people on that committee for open space, really, what is open space? What's recreational? What do we consider it? Is beaches recreational? Is it parks? What does it go under? It's so much. And I think this plan, that if we do it together and everyone participates on the official survey and questions and concerns and participate in the forums, we will be able to actually understand. Now, I know people can say, well, that's in June. Well, that's things that we need to do when there's a process. What are we going to do ahead of time? So I know I'm going to really be here tonight is to listen, like I said, to Leslie and your concerns. We tonight are not going to say, well, yeah, that's a good idea. We can do that, whatever. We're not going to make any promises tonight. It's hard to make a promise of what we're going to do. We're going to learn from what we didn't do last year, what we could have done better. We're going to take everything that we have here. This is recorded. We're going to take everything that we have here. We met twice with our staff that we have to, DPW, police, fire, harbor master's office, Board of Health, because we're in COVID, especially all of the ones in community development, for outside dining, for everything you can think of that has to happen this summer. We have a group together. We started actually in January, we had 2 meetings. We're gonna first find out what's legal can be done with the COVID, because that's changing all the time, the process of it. You know, open how many people you can people want to know, you're going to open it up, you're going to close it, what's going to happen. Right now, we are taking that step. Right now, no one's planning on any right now till today. We're going to meet again with the planning committee for special permits, because we said nothing is going to be done. And now the governor opened it up a little. So we're going to be working together on what we can and cannot do, and what we have and what we don't have, and what's available and not available. Right now, my main concern is to listen. So I want to thank Val for putting this together so I can hear your concerns. I know a lot of them because you emailed me, and what's going to be manageable and what we can do. And we'll let Val know and all of you know ahead of time, so you can at least be prepared what's going to happen. And then I want everyone to understand, this is not going to change after we all meet together. And this is from my staff. Last year was COVID. So last year during COVID, we had so many different things we changing all the time. This street needs to be residential. This needs to be this. We're not going to do that. We are going to have everything in place, and we're going to stick by it. We're not going to change in the middle of the season and say, well, we need this, we need that. It can't happen. We are all going to stick. All my staff is going to stick to one plan. And we're all going to live by that one plan. And we're going to ask the councilors to join us. So when someone asks for something, this is the plan, and this is how we're going to do it, because we cannot be scattered all around. We have to take action, because we don't know what's going to happen with the COVID, but we do know that Gloucester has been discovered and people are coming, and we have to prepare for that. And we have to prepare for just as much as on the land as the ocean. Environmental police, not environmental police. It's, you know what, we have a handful of employees, seasonal employees. We're trying to get more. Not everyone was there last year, and because of COVID, a lot of people were out. So it's hopefully that a lot of the people who were seasonal employees and want to help with the city by then, that they have their vaccines, and that, you know what, we won't have that, because there's at times at, we had shortage of police, shortage of fire. But you know what? We did the best we can what we had, and none of you suffered from it. I know you were ignored by a lot of it, but you didn't suffer from it. And what we had to do is we had to close the quarries because there was no alternative. We're hoping that, you know what, this year that, we can enjoy it a little bit, and we're going to move forward with all your concerns to see if we can fulfill some of them. And then if we can't, we come again with another conclusion of how we want to proceed on those. So again, thank you, Leslie. I can't wait to actually hear some more interesting stories. Thank you so much, because I'm sure with the pictures, we all can learn from the quarries, not from jumping in, but learning a lot. It's not just the quarries, it's the trails and how it started, because the quarries, I guess, were made and it wasn't just Mother Nature. So I'm sure she helped. There's always a woman behind something special. So on that, I'd like to give it back to you, Val.
Great, thank you, Mayor. So the next item on our agenda is to listen a little bit to Les Bartlett talk about values and why we value our quarries. So I'm looking forward to this, and his photographs are just lovely. So Les, I'll let you do the next section of our forum.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity for me to be able to talk a little bit of my daily occupation for the past 22 years, which has been to walk the quarries of Cape Ann, and especially the Lanesville quarries, which have been my favorite. The photo that you're looking at is me standing in a suit at the Cape Ann Museum with one of my large photographs. And when I had my show in 2007, I must tell you, I held my breath thinking no one wants to see quarry photos. The quarries are a dead story. And I've learned that, in fact, the quarries are very alive, and they're very alive with us now. Next slide, please, Chris. If I may. So today the question is, how do we value our Lanesville quarries and trails? I learned that there are a lot of voices, and that everyone's voice is very important as we seek, as the mayor says, for what must be a long-term solution. So what are the values? Next slide, Chris, please. Well, we value convenience. I can say I value convenience. I value walking into the quarries. I value swimming in the quarries, and I like to get to the quarries whenever I want to. Next slide, please. We value quiet nature in the quarries. You know, it's said that when the quarries closed in 1930, that the quarrymen couldn't stand the deafening sound of silence. And silence is a rare value, and it's something we look for in our world to remove the stress and the daily issues. Next slide, please. Next, thank you. We value what I call the tamed wild. The trails that we walk repeatedly. And as a group, we're able even to wear down the granite itself into a comfortable path. And the simplest path, the path of the fact is, next slide, please. We value living nearby. We're on this island of Cape Ann, and we can get to these wonderful quarries in Lanesville quickly. This is a photo that I took last week from the backside of Vernon's, looking back over Vernon's with a water tower that can be seen near and far. And it is this near and far that's so precious for us. What's far away, however, is the knowledge of the men who actually worked in the quarries. Next slide, please. Vernon's quarry is named for James Johnstone Vernon. He owned the quarry. He's on the left with the straw hat standing next to a foreman. And when he'd had enough of quarrying, he sold the quarry to the Rockport Granite Company and remained as a foreman. Actually, he sold the quarry because on a moment of dynamiting, one of his workmen didn't move. He tried to warn the workman to move away. The workman didn't move away. An iron spike killed the man on the spot. And that so struck James Johnstone Vernon's heart that he said, I've had enough of this. Next slide, please. Well, James Vernon's business was in Lanesville and in Bayview. He sold granite up and down the East Coast. He was beloved. He worked with multiple ethnic groups. He worked his workmen with the Irish, the French, the Italians, and the Finns. And somehow he found a way that they all could cooperate and work together. It's noteworthy to point out that his workers never weren't in strike against him. That in the long union strikes against the quarries, he never suffered that. Next slide, Chris. And this beloved citizen lies at rest in the Locust Grove Cemetery here on Cape Ann. So all of this is a little bit of the background of James Vernon. But now I want to share with you the background of the quarries themselves. Next slide, please. This is a photo from Barbara Erkler in 1980 of Vernon's Quarry. And it's as pristine as it might have been. And what I want to say, it's my single mantra, I think it's this: quarries are not natural. They're not a birthright. The quarries are torn out from the natural landscape. They're human-made, dynamited out from the ground, worked for money, and then abandoned and left to fill with water. And so we're faced as a community with a difficult decision of what to do next and how to do next. Next slide, Chris. Here's Vernon's Quarry in 1920, showing some signs of wear, showing some signs of filling in by nature and visits by humans. Next slide, please. Although we live near these quarries, it's easy to forget that the rock landscape is resilient and changing every day. We'd like to think it's always going to be the way we want it, but it's always changing. And it's important for us to educate ourselves to this changing history. Next slide. Not just to what happened long ago in a different time, but to understand the history of the landscape, understand a little bit more about the men that worked it, so that we can make informed decisions leading to a long-term solution. As the mayor said, it's not an immediate answer. It requires all of you who are in attendance and then later watching the video to be able to make help. Next slide, please. The amazing thing, if we acknowledge that we need to learn a little bit more about the quarries, we have to bear in mind that for many of the visitors who come in the summer, they're asking for directions to the pond. They have no knowledge of what a large body of water and what the opportunities and dangers of a quarry represents. Next slide. And many visitors, ourselves included, don't stand long enough to care about the history or even care. And it's important that we develop greater caring. Next slide, please. So what is the opportunity in looking at the values that we have with the quarries? There's plenty of room for art in many disciplines. I'm simply closing here with 3 of my photos that were exhibited at the Cape Ann Museum. This is a photo from the back of Vernon's Quarry. Vernon's Quarry is in fact the oldest quarry on Cape Ann and is deserving of National Historic Preservation. Next slide, please. We can, I think, pool our spare time and form a single line of action. This photo is actually called the moving line. Last photo, last slide. Next slide, please, Chris. And just as the landscape revitalizes itself, almost in miniature fashion, I think that we can revitalize the neighborhoods and come together as a group to develop an active awareness and pool our civic pride. Last slide, please, Chris. Not only do we wish for a long-term solution, but I want to tell you that the granite itself is watching us, and it's looking for us to develop an active awareness from our underdeveloped power of civic pride. Thank you very much. That's the last slide for me, Val.
Thank you. So Les, that was really wonderful to have that overview. I think I'm going to go and find that tombstone so I can take a look, because it sounds like he had quite a rich history here.
Yep.
Excellent. So now we're going to transition to the next part, and that is what have we learned from residents and abutters? And we had last summer was crazy for everyone, regardless if they lived here in Lanesville or Gloucester, wherever. Open space was just very, very popular, particularly because of COVID. And what was happening here in Lanesville was that every day was a day where all the graduating seniors from every community in Massachusetts were coming here to have a celebration. So it wasn't just weekends last year, it was 24/7. And things got so hectic that and overwhelming in the neighborhoods that The day that the mayor made the decision to close the quarries was so welcomed by all the residents because it was very stressful and it did affect the quality of life. And we'll never forget that decision because we certainly appreciated it. And then came just kind of this opportunity to discuss, what are we going to do differently? How do we want to manage the quarries? We know we all have budget constraints here in the city, and Chief Conley will talk a little bit about that later. But what I'd like to do is continue on the survey focus group that we started last September at Plum Cove Beach, where we all got together. There were 37 people, social distance groups, and Les was one of the facilitators, as was Heather Atwood. So if we can just start, Chris, if that's okay with the survey. So this is these are some very short answers. And as the mayor said, the Open Space and Recreation Committee is going to do a very thorough open space survey for the whole city, which I think is something that we should all participate in. This was basically information coming from last summer. And so the first question was, how often do you visit the quarries and access trails in Lanesville? You'll see that 18 of 44, we summarized the survey last night, and there's been quite a few more that have come in today. And we look forward to people participating in the survey until the end of March. So this will be rolling data. But frequently, many times per week, 18 filled that out, or 40.9%. Moderately, often, many times per month, 12 folks said that, 27.3%. Not often, monthly seasonal, 14 people, 31.8%, and not at all was 0. So next slide, Chris. The other question that we ask is, what is your proximity to the quarries and trails? And you can see from this is that 71% who filled out the survey in the last week said that they live within a mile. 10% are in Ward 1. So as we like to go to Good Harbor Beach in Ward 1 or Wingasheet in Ward 5, there are folks from Ward 1 that like to come here to our quarries. And the takeaway is that our quarries are enjoyed by all Gloucester residents and visitors alike. I love the colors on this graphic, so thank you. Next slide, Chris. Okay, this is one of my lessons on Quarry on Google Doc management. Is that in some of my questions that I had used last September, my selections were too long. So when we put them in the graphics that Google Doc turns them into, it gets a little busy. So what I'd like to do is move right now through this very quickly. But this, if you look at the popular items, you'll see that hiking and jogging are the most important. And in those two alone, 48 total responses. Followed by personal recreational meditation, artistic impression, which is 10, selected that. And then to the presentation that Les Bartlett did earlier, historical tour and granite heritage, 9 folks selected that. Swimming was only 8, and maintenance and aesthetics was 7. And then the rest was kind of a multitude of things, ranging from biking and running, property value related. So next slide, please. So what 2 enforcement criteria are the most important as we prepare to evaluate best practices? Let's look at the next slide, please, because it's easy to read. So if we look at these different categories, you'll see that 29% of the folks that filled this out said that posted rules applied and reinforced, no fires, no camping, no drinking, no trespassing, that was the most important criteria. Next, followed by 34 responses, and I'm saying 34, which is more than this because I actually just updated the results on my notes that I just saw about a couple hours ago. So 34 people said appropriate parking and signage, which is still approximately 24% of the folks that filled this out. 27 responses said, or 19%, proper and realistic balance between residents' usage and supervised managed time monitored by paid wardens for visitors to enjoy. So that balance. 16 people, or 11%, said safety was important, followed by 7 for ATVs being active during peak usage times, ranging down to cameras. 2 folks said that, 2 bike patrols. And although 2 people said bike patrols, 2 people also said not allowing wheeled vehicles, particularly when the grounds were wet and fragile. So that's a summary of that. Next slide, please. So you're going to really enjoy this when we share all of the data from this survey, and we're allowing people to fill it out till the end of March. But these are some of the values and quarries that people identified. And they're really, if you really want to feel good about life and our open space here in Gloucester, take the time to read some of these. It's very heavy, but particularly during these tough times, people have so much needed our open space, and you'll see that passion when you read these. But I won't go through them for now, but because I want to get to the questions and answers. But do take the time, because I think you'll be moved by it. We're so lucky to live in Gloucester. Next slide, please. Next, we talked about ways to protect our quarries from abuse. And this was an open-ended question, and we kind of pulled it together. First of all, posted parking residents only and enforcement, increased fines and towing. That actually, number 9 has moved up to 11 based on the updated surveys that I identified today. Keep the trails groomed and patrols, wardens. I know the mayor has talked about that. She hired some wardens last summer, and or police patrol noon through dusk. And that number of 7 now is up to 10. 4 people, actually, yep, still 4, trash bins and litter enforcement. But I think everyone does know that we have carry in, carry out. Residents only was 4. And I'll let the chief talk a little bit more about that. And signage and enforcement of curfews, drinking, drug use was 4. So that 2 went up to 4. And managed visiting parking lots and kiosks was actually 3 people thought that that was important. Posted police number to call to report abuse. Next slide, Chris. And here's some of the individual comments that were made as well. Eliminate residents only parking on ball field side across from Plum Cove Beach. I told the person that suggested that kind of is not probably going to happen, because when we start eliminate residents only parking, what it does is it pushes more people into other areas. It's kind of like a domino effect. But, you know, we're grateful to get all of these suggestions, and we take them all seriously. Engage volunteers to work with city staff and stewardships. We actually have a neighborhood watch group of over 20 that are the eyes and the ears to the police, and they coordinate cleanups, graffiti removal, and they do so much to protect our quarries, and we appreciate that. Chief Conley and former Chief McCarthy always said that our residents are the eyes and ears for the police department and the fire department, and we truly appreciate that. Installing cameras at high-risk popular areas, and request that locals stop posting photos on social media. That can become a problem, and we should be mindful of that, because sometimes these things go viral, and then everybody in the whole world start coming here, and in our residential neighborhoods are just not meant to accommodate a huge volume of people. And then someone said leashing the dogs on the quarry trails. Next slide, please. So these are just different suggestions on ways to protect Lanesville and quarry abuse. And you'll see that we didn't editorialize anything. We just took them right off the survey data. There's all types of suggestions. But everyone has opinions. And I think the more you can see consistency in what people are saying, the more you'll understand that I think we're heading in the right direction in terms of how we've been handling this. You'll be happy to know that our city council just put on the consent agenda a council order to increase the residents only sticker non-beach zone parking fines from $15 to $50. And we're hoping that if that goes through, that will be in place by the middle of May. So we hope that you all watch for when the public hearing will be held on that, and it's going to ONA. But that's just one little thing. And we have a lot of other issues that we're trying to come up with. And at this point, Chris, thank you for your prompt because I'm wrapping up. And I want to introduce Chief Conley, our police chief. And just a reminder that the chief was only here for about 2 months, and he came to a coffee with Chief Conley at the Cove Cafe, and he got to know about 20 Lanesville residents very quickly, and we appreciated your visibility, Chief. So tell us about what you're thinking of for enforcement, and then after that, we'll get into the questions and answers. Thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me tonight, Counselor, and being able to speak to some of these issues that we know are near and dear to the heart, not only of Lanesville residents, but everybody who enjoys the wooded areas and around the quarries, and those people who own homes up in that area, which this year, as the end of this last summer, I include myself and my family into that category. We, as you know, live nearby, and we enjoy the quarries. In fact, my wife and I did the Dogtown 5-miler. By the time we were done with it, it was 6.5 miles because I got temporarily misoriented, but did cross the finish line. So I like to say, I say that to you because I enjoy that area, and with my family and my dog and my wife, and so it is personal to me. I'm not just I want to say, like, I'm not just a police chief in this. I'm also a member of that area. In fact, Mr. Bartlett's presentation was really interesting to me. On my property now, I actually have a boulder. It's a pretty large, almost 1.5 story boulder that still has the metal spikes in it from where it looks like they tried to tear it apart at one point and then quit on it. So near and dear to me. So first, I'd like to talk about what we did last year. So as you know, last year we sort of kept the model of heavy parking enforcement. In fact, the numbers which I published last year during the summer were significantly increased over any previous year. So thanks to the mayor's leadership, we were able to hire one of our part-time staff and bring her on full-time to do parking enforcement. I really feel like that was a game changer. I think the last number I saw from City Treasurer John Dunn was that we wrote $60,000 in tickets, which I believe is probably about 5x than any other number before. So parking enforcement was increased for sure. I think one of the problems we saw, just taking COVID out of it for a moment, was that I think the previous model of really hitting parking enforcement over and over again and dissuading people from coming there is not working as well as it has in the past, because people have access to other methods of getting, whether they're carpooling or Ubering or taking Lyft or any of those ride sharing services to get up to the quarries. And we were pretty aggressive with our patrols up there on the ATVs. In terms of the coming year, it's still a little early for me to commit to anything right now, only because we're just beginning our budget season. I could just say to you that my thought today is to continue the process we've had before if we're able to. We've had some setbacks here at GPD in terms of personnel, mainly because of COVID. And due to COVID over the last 9 months, a lot of the police academies were either shut down, and including the one we just had 3 graduate from, were delayed significantly because they needed to quarantine for a period of weeks due to COVID outbreaks. So we're dealing with a few personnel issues in terms of staffing levels, but I think we're going to be in good shape in the coming months, but there's no guarantee. I think, as you know, Counselor, you and I have spoken many times. Mr. Bartlett, I think, makes an excellent point about deciding what these quarries are to the community coming forward and deciding what they're going to be and how that's potentially regulated and how they interact around rules and rules and how those rules are enforced need to be beyond just the police department. And those are ongoing conversations we have with the mayor's office and certainly with you, Counselor. So I guess what I'm really looking forward to is to hear people's specific questions and concerns that they have concerning enforcement or anything else I might be able to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate it. So the details of how to participate in the question and answer is that on the bottom of your screen, if most of you, we now have 59 attendees and 7 panelists. So you have an opportunity to write in the Q&A a question that you might have. So if for those of you who have screens in front of you, if you could do that, and then we're going to alternate from the questions that were asked, and we'll all do the best we can to answer them. And I think, like the mayor said and the police chief, a lot of these questions and answers are a work in process. We have a budget coming up. Administration's had several meetings talking about staffing and what they're planning on for the summer, and it's a work in progress. So, but the fact that administration is here and listening means a lot. And so we look forward to having some of your questions brought up and answered. So I don't know if anybody has written anything in. Not yet. So.
Counselor, there was a question from, it's in the answer section because I happened to reply to say that we acknowledged it. So I don't know if you can see that in that section.
Okay, yeah, I do see that. So the question is, it's from Doug and Barb Parsons, and I saw that they were on the phone. So thank you for joining us. Groups of kids pass our house to go up Young Ave, heading for the quarry. Should I be calling police when I see groups of kids heading up to the quarries? I've already seen small groups of kids that I'm guessing are heading up to the quarries, from Barb Parsons. So Chief, I'll let you take that, that question.
Well, I guess it depends because in terms of small groups of kids, I understand last year it was COVID and there were restrictions and the quarries were closed. So certainly if the quarries are closed and people are trespassing, or you think they're heading there to trespass, then that would potentially be a crime and we should be notified. If the quarries are not closed this summer, depending on where we're at, what the status is in terms of COVID, then that kids simply heading up to the trails is not a crime, and not much we can do about that. I know most people on this call are probably very familiar with Officer Mark Foote, who has been our officer in Lanesville for many years, and he's my go-to person when I have questions about enforcement up there. And I know especially during the summer, he spends most of his shift up in that area, keeping an eye open for people heading into the woods.
Okay, thank you. And do you have any ideas when we would be hearing from the governor in terms of what the next step is in terms of groups and et cetera?
I don't know if that'd be a question for me, Counselor. I don't have any.
Okay. Well, we can watch that and we'll just pay attention. Mayor?
Yeah, well, it's kind of different as far as the quarries and the locations, as far as how many people like we do on beaches, because you can actually monitor how many parking people come to the parks where they have to park. It's hard when you walk on. It's hard. It's kind of difficult because, you know, outdoor events is different from beaches and parks and what we can and cannot do. So we're still waiting to hear from that because, you know, they're going to tell people you need to, you know, before 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart, what they're going to do, wear the mask. I mean, you know, the kids who go up to the quarries, they're not going to follow any of the guidelines. They never have, they never will. They don't do it now. So it's really something that we're going to have to discuss of how we're going to be able to do that. And I guess whether, you know, the city, the whole state's going up, are we red, are we yellow? I mean, it really is difficult to talk about it now, but we're going to be in close contact with you, Val, to figure out what we're going to do for a plan. You know what? If the, you know what, the people who, and this is how I feel, it's kind of hard to say, okay, no jumping, no quarries, no swimming, and then everyone goes up there and we don't do anything. And it's also kind of say it's closed and the people get, well, it's beautiful. Why can't I take a walk? Why can't I walk my dog? Why can't I do that? Do we put no swimming, and who's gonna be there? So we have to talk, and you're gonna have to talk to your constituents, but you're gonna have to also, we're gonna have to find out. It's not just Lanesville. It's not just, like you said, Ward 1 goes there, Ward 3 goes there. So we're gonna have to be able to discuss it, what we do and not do, because if you're gonna consider that like an open space and not a private place and it's public, totally different criteria. So we're going to have to define a lot of these issues and a lot of these things, because that's what the open space is doing with their surveys. Where do we want to put beaches? Is beaches, recreational, or is it open space? And so we're going to find that out, because a lot of things that, like you said, the quarries from years ago, it's beautiful. It's great. Can I say that I've never been there? Because we all know that when we're young and you're not supposed to be there to begin with, none of it, technically we're not supposed to be swimming in the reservoirs. You're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to, there's a lot of things, but we made them all our homes. And for years, it was always that way. And now it's kind of hard. We've been discovered. And so we got to figure out liability. Do we have liability up there at all? Just because it's owned by the city doesn't mean we have 100% liability. And we saw last year that the people who weren't familiar with the quarries, where they were going, and then when they were getting injured, to get someone out was putting also my staff, my fire and police at risk. So there's a lot of things that I want to hear from everyone who frequently go there all the time. And I'm also going to now go look for that tombstone. So I'll take a walk with you, Val, and to figure out what we can do that's going to make us all safe, including my staff. So.
Thank you, Mayor. So we will be rolling up, like I said, the survey, which will have all the data and all the opinions on matters in the quarries and the trails. And we will share that, and we'll continue to update our community. So the next question is, let's see. What are the most pressing issues or hurdles the city needs to address that residents need to understand and help with? So, Chief, pressing issues or hurdles that the city needs to address that residents need to understand and help with. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I can only speak from one small sliver of that question in terms of enforcement. And I think you said it the best, Council, earlier on. The people are eyes and ears, and the best thing that anybody can do when they think they're witnessing a crime, if there's a question, I promise if you call us, we will pick up the phone. And when we dispatch, cruisers always respond. And you shouldn't hesitate to call us. I would ask one thing, if Councilor Gilman will block her ears for a minute, and I would just ask that if you are witnessing a crime or have a complaint about something or a question, call us directly. It's just easier that way. I know Councilor Gilman loves taking your calls and interacting, and certainly those conversations, I'm not saying those should never happen, but while something is happening, you should be calling us directly. If it's a non-emergency, or you're kind of like, well, I don't know if I need someone to respond, our 1212 line is always answered. And certainly if it's an emergency, or if there is any question whatsoever, call 911. I've heard urban legends that people are afraid they get in trouble for calling 911 when it's not an emergency. That's not true. That's not true at all. And you shouldn't hesitate to call us direct.
Right. And I am like a recording, Chief. Every time someone calls me, sometimes I'll be out on my boat and I'll have someone call and they'll say, someone's lighting a fire here. And I'm like, you've got to call 283-1212. And my husband looks at me like, are you getting a call on the boat right now? And I'm like, yes, I am. But I recite that over and over again. So, but I appreciate the teasing, because I certainly don't want to be, I'm not the enforcement agent, and I try to be that guide. And also just a reminder that if the issues are fire, like fire pits, or if it's dry and you see something up there that's going to start to burn, you need to call the fire department. And we're staffed at Bayview, and Chief Smith definitely asks us to get him involved when we see fire violations as well. So I think that's important.
Absolutely, Council. And I would say, even if you see something like that and you're like, oh I don't know what the fire department's number is, call us. Because we dispatch both fire and police, we send everything right over to them. But when someone calls calls you directly, and then you of course call me, and then I basically call the 1212 line and do exactly what would have happened in between. That costs time, and by the time the officer dispatcher gets there, often it's already over. And by doing it that way, you're making me the most expensive dispatcher in the state of Massachusetts, probably. So just to be more efficient, if they call us, no one gets in trouble for calling us. And if anybody got bad service, my email's on the website. You let me know.
Thank you.
Val,
Yes.
there are no fire permitting. If you don't have a permit, it's not your backyard, just call the fire department. Don't try to think if it's, oh, it could be dry weather, wet weather. I don't care. First of all, it's illegal up there, and call the fire department. Because maybe they'll know that, okay, the fire department's coming all the time, they won't light them, because you know what, it's more damages when they run or when they leave and then the sparks happen. I'd rather, you know what, be a little bit inconvenient and go there. You know what, whether, you know what, it's a small fire, you smell something, you see something, it's prevention. And we're not going to do prevention if we say, well, it's going to rain or it's wet, it won't catch on fire, because that's
right.
what's going to happen. You know what, people, 283-2424, 1212, you know what, and if you see it and it's a lot, 911, you know what, we have to stop. We have to not have to be worried, because we saw what's happening in different worlds, Pools Hill here and that, and reservoirs. You know, we got to protect. We got to protect what we have, and we're not going to be able to. If we're going to be, it's not an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience if you keep telling me this car's double parked and the police is not there when it's 100 degrees out and all the other places are full, and we're telling you we don't have anyone. We'll get the towing truck. We have one towing truck. That sometimes hearing from View Val saying this car is here, whatever, it is. But calling when it's a necessity like that, please, you're not an inconvenience. It's hard. I mean, I think I wish I could be able to say I have a forecast and be able to say to everyone, you know, we are short staffed, you know, but we have, you know, all these, we have one, I don't know why someone doesn't invest in towing. They could be making a killing. We have one in Gloucester. I think, you know what, we should start investing in our own. I'm telling you, because when people understand that, and I'm glad that now, you know, parking fees are going to go up. All these things are going to go up, because you know that if you're in at Good Harbor and you're partying at the quarries, by the time they get there and the forget it, you already had a great day for what, $50? It's not going to happen. So, you know, we're trying the best we can of what we have. And if we could figure out a budget, I had a magic wand, you know, it'd be kind of great to do all the things we want to do. I want to protect our reservoirs behind my house and Wallace and all of them. They're everywhere. And it's our drinking water. And, you know, even down in Dogtown, I mean, there's places we're not supposed to be and they're all going. I mean, it's ridiculous. And you know what? They're not afraid. Then, and that's what scares me. And when I heard some of your residents say, you know, Mayor, we know our local kids, but these weren't our local kids. And I don't know what to say to them. I said, don't say anything, because I tried. And you know what? You never see me run. I ran because I was scared. And we shouldn't. If it's happening and you feel that you're scared, please call the police. Doesn't have to be 911, but call us. They'll let us know. At least they'll know. And if someone else is hearing, because if we all have scanners, because now we have that new scanner guy, he tells us everything. And if it's not the scanner, we call telling us everything, they'll hear it. And if whoever's near there will stop there, because they're driving around all the time. So, and if they're not driving around, I have a scanner, you do, we're all around, because you know what? We need to really focus on how we're going to protect each other too. And we want to be city friendly. When we're open, we're public, we want to know what we can do, but we also want to know that, you know, it is kind of an inconvenience. And I'm hearing it and I see it and I go all around. I had no summer. I wasn't even on the beach, even though people had me swimming everywhere. That's okay.
Right.
But you know what? You got to go out in the ocean. I bothered you. Every time I see you out there, I call you just to fight.
It's because you just want to talk to my husband, I think.
Yeah.
We actually had a person ziplining in Klondike last year. So if you want to talk about something dangerous that you absolutely, if you ever see something like that, get on the phone and call 1212, please. Because, you know, safety is so important. And that was really, you know, to see it a couple of days later on Facebook.
If you see me ziplining, call American Funniest Videos. We'll have enough money to pay for someone to stand there all day.
Okay, I think we have a lot of questions right now. So let's see. The question is, oh, Heidi Wakeman. Thank you. Heidi is our new chair of Open Space, and we're delighted that she is here. What do other communities with quarries do to work with these challenges? Have we as a city been in contact with other towns to get ideas? So Heidi, I will take that. We have done some best practice research, and the most formal quarry management that I saw, and I think Les, I shared it with you, correct? Do you want to take yourself off mute? So it was pretty interesting. I forget the name of it. Is it
Beckett Quarry.
Beckett Quarries, right? So they were having all the same issues that we are having, and they decided to partner with like an Essex County Greenbelt in their location. And so they're trying to come up with rules, and they're actually collecting, I think they were looking to collect like $200,000 to help with signage and enforcement and kind of the whole practice. And that was probably the most formal, and that was all recent as a result of last summer. So that video is online if you want to see it. But as Les said, it's an ongoing process here. We're not ready to make a decision overnight about anything that we want. That was just one of many. I think people know it's Steel Derrick, what they have, but that's a private group in Rockport. They have someone there, you have to show your badge or your identification, and there's a warden there, and making sure that you are a member. We know what they do at Halibut Point. That's another public location. I think everyone's been there. We will continue to look at what other quarries are doing, but this process of best practices is definitely an ongoing one where we really have to get our arms around it. And what is it that we want to do? And your feedback is very important to that. And if you haven't already filled out one of the surveys, please do. Your open-ended questions are getting read in their entirety. And it's very interesting, important feedback, because we want to make the decision that we can afford, but is in the best interest of the majority of our people in terms of what residents feel are important. Do you have anything to add, Les? Because I know you did.
A little bit of background information regarding Beckett. The Beckett Quarry is a town land trust that was put together in 1990 because the quarry closed in the 40s, and they left all the equipment there. It was inert, everything was rusting. And the townspeople got word in the 1990 that a businessman wanted to buy the quarry and reopen it. And the town decided they wanted to have it as some form of a walking history of the quarry industry. And so they got together and it became the Beckett Quarry. I visited it back 2007, 2008. There's a significant factor in that the only way you get to the quarry is on a 2.5-mile road to get there. One entrance, one road. And one of the things that we suffer in Lanesville, as we know, is there are many trails to get into Vernon's and Nelson's and Klondike.
Mm-hmm.
So the statistic was that this past summer, due to COVID and everything else, they had 18,000 visitors, okay, who drove the 2.5 miles to get there, and the partying, everything took place that was difficult. A little bit further back, to answer Heidi's question of other cities with quarries or towns, we do have Halibut Point as an example, where it took almost 20 years for it to become a state park. So these things take long. There are a lot of factors and parties and discussions to get to what I'm going to call as a good long-term solution. In 2004, because of my quarry photos, I was contacted by the Charles Luck Corporation, which is out of Richmond, Virginia. And they, at that time, were the largest, they crushed rock. Okay, rock for parking lots, rock for tennis courts. They crushed rock. And they had a big problem. They had 4 quarries that they were going to close. And they were looking for, what did I know? What could I suggest? How could quarries become a best practice of something other than just filling them with rocks? Okay, how could a community really make use of them? Quite truthfully, I don't know what finally happened with the 4 quarries, but they looked to the Cape Ann solution of Halibut Point as being unique. So I'm not proposing that we're going to make the Vernon's a state park, I think the challenge and the opportunity is how much we all have, we're all are going to get off this meeting and go to Facebook, many of us, and say, I liked the meeting, I didn't like the meeting, right? It's a minute of my life to go in and say, thumbs up, thumbs down. Well, that's all untapped group leisure time that we can put together in a way to get to a more effective result. Because just to people, it's a little bit off topic, but the point is we have to find the solution ourselves. I know that part of the challenge is that there aren't a dozen instances in the Commonwealth where open space practice has been applied to quarries. Okay? And it's because they're not natural, they're man-made, and we made them on Cape Ann. So.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Heidi, that was a great question. And I know that we'll all look forward to collaborating with the Open Space and Recreation Committee. So thank you. Let's see, we have Kelsey Hutchinson. In our neighborhood, Vulcan, crowded parking became a significant issue. Temporary no parking signs and enforcement pretty much eliminated the problem. What's the signage plans for this year? So I can answer that. We are in the process of putting in a council order to make Vulcan, Quarry Street, Colburn, Andrews, Dooley, and all of Washington Street residents only. And other councilors like Councilor Memard in Ward 1 and Councilor Nolan in Ward 5 are adding to that list of streets. We're working with the Traffic Commission. And we're hoping to get that on the consent agenda by next week. And so what that will mean is that those streets will become residents sticker only parking, not in the beach area. And those—
Val, did you say Washington Street? What part of Washington? Make sure you clarify that.
Right. Well, most of Washington Street is already signed as residents only. So it would be the balance of parking areas on I didn't mean to say Washington Street. Did I say Washington Street?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I meant to say High Street.
Thank you. I was like, okay, Val, wait a minute. The hospital's on that street.
Thank you for catching that. I'm sorry. It's been a long day, but thank you. But anyway, I think that might have helped answer that question. So if any of you have opinions of any of those streets I mentioned, please let us know. But of course, this will go through the full process of public hearing. I've reached out to quite a few folks on all of those streets, and you were all part of the temporary signs. And I think for the most, the signage helped. And we also think that the enforcement signs of bringing the fines up, if we can get this approved from 15 to 50, does make a difference. So, and people know that you can get a residents only sticker right now for $5 as opposed to the big beach sticker, which I believe is $30 for Good Harbor and Wingashiek. So that's, I hope that answers your question. I remember being at your house when we had some issues across the street from your house and being with your folks. But we won't get into that. That was another hiccup from last year that I'll never forget. Let's see. Ruth Pino has a question, and residents only means people need a sticker, correct? Not all residents can get a sticker. Mayor, do you have any thoughts on that question about a residents only sticker? I know that you can get them at City Hall.
Oh, she's right. Not everyone can. It's kind of difficult. We're working on that with the Attorney General's office, and I was working with actually Marty Walsh. As you know, we have people who don't have driver's license, but live in the city of Gloucester, own homes, own businesses, and they have vehicles that go to their business, but it's under someone else's name because they don't have a license. And they were getting ticketed $75 just to park in front of their own home. And how can we do that? And so we're looking at all the avenues of how we can give resident stickers, because if you live here and you have your taxes in your house, there's a way to prove you're a resident to give you that resident sticker. Because the fact is, we have a way to do it. I'm not going to announce it to the world because the fact is we're still in first plans, and there's different criterias, but Beach stickers are different, but resident stickers are $5. We are working on how to actually give a resident sticker for your vehicle without you owning the vehicle, but you do live in Gloucester, own homes, and et cetera, et cetera. We're working on that. It's not easy. And remember that certain areas really are for beachgoers, but certain areas that they did do last year because of COVID, because everyone was just whatever availability there was. I mean, they were going to people's driveways, and you know you can't tow out of someone else's house because you don't have you can't park on your own driveway, or you don't have a sign that is from the towing company that says trespassers or your vehicle will be towed. So people were stuck in their own homes. I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible. My seniors were afraid. You know, can I park in your yard to give you $30? I mean, it was people, they didn't care. They
Right.
parked all over the old drive everywhere. So we're trying to do that. Ruth, thank you for bringing that up. We're trying to do that to best fit our population and our residents. So we are working on that. I had to get clarification last year, and I did, from the Attorney General, but we need it because we can do it when we're in the state of emergency, certain things, and the city's in emergency. But how do we do it to correct it? Because you're making permanent roads. It wasn't temporary. So we're working on that issue.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And I should probably just elaborate on my comment that I made to Kelsey Hutchinson. So we witnessed a person on the Lanesville Community Center field doing donuts right in front of my car as I was parked there looking at residents only parking. And it was the most frightening thing. It was 1 o'clock on a weekday afternoon. And he ended up right in front of my car, like screeching to a halt, doing donuts, going 30 miles an hour on a playground at the Lanesville Community Center. So that was just one example of one of the, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening this summer. It was just, there were so many issues like that. So to the mayor's point, cars were getting blocked into their own driveways. It was just a summer that was one that we will be glad to forget. So anyway, all right, let's get another question here. Let's see. Linda, this is Bill Ryan using a laptop with my wife's Zoom account. Question, hi Bill. Is it possible to have some kind of satellite parking dedicated to the quarry goers, but where there are limits? It seems worth trying for that compromise with those seeking the quarries and those not liking the people there. So
Again, you know what, everyone says the same thing. We can't get on our beaches. Can we park at O'Malley? Can we park here in Shuttle? Well, it's the same thing. We are having how many people at one place? So if you're not going to be able to say, okay, to kids who don't, or anyone who doesn't obey our laws as it is, or park where they want to, going to sit there at O'Malley School, go take a shuttle to the quarries, where they want to potty and do what they want to do and obey rules and regulations. You know, people who want to, we're going to have the trolley this year at Stage 4 Park. You can park and they'll take you to some of the beaches, like Good Harbor Beach, you know, and take you around. So we'll have less vehicles. We're going to do that again because it's open. Thank you to Jill Cahill and, you know, Felicia from Felicia Webb from Cato. We had grants from before and we're going to continue that. And so we're trying to do some things that, you know, don't take your vehicle. But I'm going to be honest with you. People who are going to go to the quarries and they just want to do it during the day to go take their dog or enjoy it or take pictures or do the trail, will comply. People who want to potty and they're going to do that, they're not going to carry a cooler on the trolley to get there, and to have a shuttle to go back and forth, because then you're not going to know how many people are where, because then they'll park it anywhere else and you're going to have no control. We have to figure out what we're going to do for control and how many people. And really, I mean, legally, I don't know. I'm going to find out. But I always found out when I was growing up, there was no swimming in the quarries at all. We all just did it. You know, we all did a lot of things. Like you said, walking those trails, we made them a path. There was never a path there. Nobody made that path. It was over all the years of people who weren't supposed to do. Half of the trails, the beautiful trails in Gloucester, are not because people got machetes and started cutting all down the trees. It's over walking and walking and walking and walking. I see all these trails and I'm going like, how'd they get there? It's like he said, now I learned. You know what? I couldn't believe I said, isn't that a beautiful walkway? Well, I guess it wasn't. I guess it was all of us keep climbing and they sank in. It's what we got to figure out really what we're going to do, because the quarry doesn't get cleaned It doesn't get drained. It doesn't, what's in there and what's not in there, and what they put in there, and where you can see the lines that the water is going down, and with climate change and everything else, it scares me. That's something you want to preserve. I mean, you have to figure it out. You don't want to make it a national landmark, because then we're going to have that all over again. And someone put on, I read the notes, do you want to keep publicizing this? Well, Councilor Hardy, God rest her soul, that her and I actually took the train all the way to Boston and back, and went down every stop and took down maps to the quarry. We spent a day on the train and went to every single stop. And we saw on the stops, because people were telling us that they had these maps to the quarries. Party at the quarry, 7 o'clock Friday night. I mean, I'm going like, where? And because it wasn't all the social media that there was. So we're taking them down and putting it back. I mean, we're going back and forth and doing this. And it was just like, okay, what do we do now? Well, let's surprise them. When they said that we're going to have a party, boy, did we wait for them. Boy, did we have a good welcome party for them. And so that delayed them. I think that if we see them that they're having, the fire pits, and they see that the fire department's coming, or they see that something's happening, and we take action over the time. But we cannot compare last year, anything from any beaches, anything from last year. Last year was holy hell, and Gloucester paid for it. Last year, every single person that was stranded in the house and going COVID crazy that could go out, we had people calling and hollering from us in March, the other day, whatever it was that nice day. Are your beach gates open? Because I'm coming from the Berkshire. It's going to be 3 hours, and you're never open. And it's March, people. And the mess that was left over, I'm going like, it's March. We don't have season. Nothing's open. And I got people from this weekend. It's our taxpayers' money. I don't want to waste it when I know we have so many demands. But the fact is that if people can't travel, they're going to travel here, because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? And so we have to figure out a plan, a master plan that we're all going to consecutive. No council can change it. No one else is going to change it. I can't change it. We need to have, this is what the police, this is what this is what this, and yes, how many, we'll have to go through the city council for, money. How do we have, can the DPW handle this? Nope. Can this police? Nope. Auxiliary? Well, it's home petition rule. Well, what do we do here? Can we get this? We're going to hire the park rangers. What can we do? How can we do it? Last year, we're very fortunate we had this group. We're very fortunate. He worked with us. I said, look, you know what? And you can do so much. It says, I'm going to need a break. I'm going to help you. Can you help me? I need something for under 10,000, because if not, I have to put it out to bid. It's going to take a month. It's going to take this, and this, and summer's over. If you can, give me something under 10,000. He cut his pricing for 40%. Okay. And we had those park rangers, but we didn't have a plan of what they needed to do. We really didn't know. We just go, okay, we need you to drive by Plum Cove, drive by Niles. And then all of a sudden Pavilion Beach was discovered. I'm going like, where did these people come from? One day it was like, wow, that's Pavilion Beach. Wait a minute, wasn't that my beach? I know how Val feels. What are you doing down that beach? You're not supposed to be here. It's high tide. There is no beach. I'm like, what's going on? And so now Pavilion Beach and all of these. And yes, no parking on Ferriton, but then they complained, then where are we going to go, Mayor? And there's no this, and I'm a resident and I pay taxes. Where am I going to park? And I'm going like, we have to be consistent. So everyone knows you're not going to park. You're going to have to carpool, take the trolley, or yes, you're going to be able to park, but don't complain. We have to be consistent. So we know where the designated areas are, what we have to pay for, and that's how it's going to go.
So Mayor, can you
elaborate?
elaborate?
Quarry is on one of them. The quarry's on one of our plans. Yes.
So can you elaborate? I know that you're already looking into some weekday support for public works. Can you share with that? Because I thought we just.
Well, because the fact is that people did discover us, and it's not fair that, and I know the season is not open. And it's really discouraging what people are doing. So that means that on a Saturday where people coming down, it was gorgeous, is mess everywhere, seagulls. It's not fair because, we're working and we want to take a walk, or we want to enjoy some of the, the wonderful, beautiful trails and sceneries and open spaces. And it was like seagulls and it was dirty. And, there was no DPW. We had nothing planned. We you don't know, we're in March. And so we had no idea. And it was kind of disturbing when I saw some of the things. I said, and I have no help. I have no season. There is no seasonal help. It's called seasonal help. We're in March. Aren't we in March? I'm going like, what day is it? I mean, because, isn't it a year of COVID, or am I really not there? And it was really frustrating because the beautiful work that we're doing down the boulevard and everywhere else, it was beautiful that we wanted to get out and we really couldn't as residents. And that really bothered me. So I worked out a plan with Mike Hale, the DPW. I said, you have people that would want to do some overtime. It doesn't start until May. We got to figure out what we can do in the budget and how I can do it. But you know what? We always took away from them. And then we just had to add because of the snow and ice, because even though it wasn't a lot of snow, but there was a lot of ice. I have to take away from another department right now. So, you know, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, but then when Peter and Paul are together, I'm just going like, I don't know after. So we're working on it right now. I robbed from Peter to pay Paul. So Paul will have a couple of weekends. I can't do weekdays, but on the good days and the weekends, we're going to start going around Burnham's Field. We're going to go around the parks. We're going to go around the beaches and everything else to empty just the trash barrels and do that. So, you know, we'll have a little bit. But
Great.
can I tell you, ignorance, I can't pay enough for people who are ignorant, because when they lift the covers off of the oil barrels that the people come in to pick up the oil, the hazardous oil, like from concession stands, and throw dog poop and everything in there and then try to cover it, where you can't, and it's all over the place. So now the guy's not going to come pick it up. We're stuck with barrels of oil for the DPW to dump where? Who's going to go in there and clean it? That's ignorance. You know what? I don't care what we have in this city. That's ignorance. That's not tourism, okay? And that's not people want to visit or whatever. Don't tell me, because I'm sorry. And then you're complaining about the dogs on the beaches. It's their season. You're not supposed to be on the beaches. They are. So you know what? You got to join with them. I'm not going to shut down the season for dogs because you want to take a walk and it's a nice day. So we have to, and that's what it is. When people may, well, can you change the day? Can you? No. You know what? We have ordinances in places, and that's why we have to stick by them. The only thing that I can do is clean up some of the trash, but it has to be up to ourselves too. When you see people, and I know we're afraid to say, hey, and so that's what it is, because you don't know who is anymore. And it's not like it's okay, Val, look what they did. You got to walk away because you just don't know who people are. But then, you know, Val, you know what, I'd rather that they tell the ward counselors than complain, because like Leslie said, it's so easy to put a thumbs down and it's so easy to put a thumbs up, and people aren't really reading the whole focus of it, just the negativity, and they add and add and add. And that hurts the staff and all of us that we're trying to keep everyone safe and we're trying to preserve what we have and keep it clean, that this is happening. And so it's frustrating. So I really appreciate, I don't mind your letters or emails at 1 a.m, because I answered you back that 1 a.m, you know, and I'm going like, she don't sleep either, so it's fine. But the fact is, you know, I'd rather have you than all these nasty things that they're putting on social media when they don't even know the whole story.
Right.
And that's what I'm asking. And Leslie was right. We have the survey, the parks and recs, get that out there, participate, so we know what you want.
Right. Thank you so much, Mayor. Appreciate it. I just wanted to announce that Jill Cahill, our Community Development Director, is on the call. So she's joined us, and it's nice to see her listening in. Les, did you have your hand raised?
I do, yes, because I think that the mayor's passion is extraordinary, okay? And because look, the quarries of Lanesville they've always been discovered. They've always been an entity that could be managed by the community. And it started being overwhelmed, when she said going on the train with Councilor Hardy to tear down in 2004 the signs that were up. I lived on Hickory Street at that time. I saw the beginning of towing or not towing. I saw the beginning of grouped where vans from the airport were bringing people to drop them off to go up to the quarry. It was the predecessor to the Ubers. But what I want to talk about is something I've shared with you, which is this unique, we look for best practices, right? And I've been reading recently the story of Benton McKay, who went to Harvard, and he did one great project in his life. He founded the Appalachian Trail. The whole trail he founded. It was his vision. It was his project. It took him 20 plus years to get it through the federal government and all the states. And what was key in it was, at the beginning, he really understood how the loggers in the White Mountains and along Maine and in Vermont and along the coast were doing all of the clear cutting. He really learned all of what the outside people who weren't interested in a trail were raising as objections. And I think part of where we're at now is that, in looking at the questions, you know, I could almost blank out the name of the person and know what their question is, because we come with the same questions. We all walk the same paths to get up to the quarry. You know, to strike off a new path is a very big question. And so to be able to get to a long-term solution where there is a revitalization of the community, which requires, you know, when we had your survey at Plum Cove Beach, and I was leading one of the groups, when it got to the, right at the beginning, one of the gentlemen in my group stood up and said, how many people are born in Lanesville here? Well, there are very few people that are born in the spaces that we're talking about. Certainly, we have long memories, and the memories are needed, and the history is needed. And there's a new population moving in. We need to be educated so that when we're confronted with people that we don't know, we come from an educated stance. And that's beyond saying, well, I go up to clean up trash, or I go up to do this or that. It's an opportunity here for this precious part of Gloucester and Cape Ann to re-find itself. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Les. So I'm going to ask a question on the list from the general public from the surveys. And that question is, why can't we arrest people drinking in public? Chief, I'll ask you that. I know that has come up before, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, there's a couple actually, and I think I'll just make an assumption that question comes from a place that assumes by making a bunch of drinking in public arrests that this would be a big deterrent to people coming there and drinking and leaving beer cans of stuff. And just having been in this business in 3 different communities now for almost 30 years, I can tell you that that's intuitively seems correct, but actually is not. Because what happens is you will get some people like, oh, the quarries are hot, don't drink up there. But then it won't get everybody. And then you start to get a curve. And one of those axes on that graph is about trust in the police. So you can imagine, well, and also everybody asks that question is assuming that their own kids will not get arrested for drinking in public, because we know that that's who we're talking about for the most part, right? Who's going to get arrested. And we're really kind of, policing in general is getting away from that, because we understand the long-term impacts that the criminal justice system has on young people, particularly those who are in high school, who are considering going to college. It impacts their scholarships, impacts their sports, and a number of different things. And even for those children or kids or young kids who aren't on a college path, it could impact future employment. And for what? Because someone took a sip of a Coors Light in the woods. So there's that. I don't necessarily have a problem with that personally. Secondly, now to say that doesn't mean that we don't make sure your kids are safe. Doesn't mean we don't take the booze away. Doesn't mean we don't call the parents. I mean, that happens. But
Right.
locking everybody up in a so-called zero tolerance, we did that in the early mid 90s, and we paid a price socially for it. So I'm concerned about that kind of approach. But having said that, we want to make sure that kids are safe, and there are other things that we can do to dissuade them.
Great. Thank you, Chief. I know your team really works hard on community policing and the education part of the relationship between teens and the police department. And I mean, I know what they do at O'Malley at the high school, and it's tremendous in terms of that relationship. I think it goes a long way with our teenagers.
I just make one more point, Council, if you don't mind, is there's that aspect of the sort of philosophical aspect of it, but then there's a pragmatic aspect of it too, which is even if I disagreed with everything I just said and did believe in zero tolerance, we want to lock up a bunch of people. They're in the middle of the woods. I have one officer assigned to that area. That kind of arrest would require a number of officers to come. But even if we locked up one, we can simply graph out the cost and time and lost opportunity that often be somewhere else, responding to a call for someone having a heart attack or serious crime going on. It's not that we have an endless supply of resources here to process an arrest. One arrest for one person, particularly coming out of the woods, and would take some time to handcuff and then escort out, is probably going to take over an hour of a single officer's time. And that officer isn't necessarily just backfilled. That's an officer that's off the street. So there's that consideration as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chief. All right, let's take maybe one or two more questions. Let's see, Frank Garrison, you're certainly in a butter up on High Street. Many of us go up to the quarries just to clean up after the visitors. Have you any suggestions other than carry in, carry out? Mike Hale's not on the call. Jill Kale, if you wanted us to bring you in to help with this, we certainly would accept that if you, I guess, Mayor, if you don't have any, or Chief Conley, do you have any?
Counselor, when they did carry in, carry out, what was the purpose of carry in and carry out? It was the purpose is that because when we had barrels on the beaches, we couldn't have access to them. People kept going all over the beaches, and so it overflowed.
Mhm.
And the seagulls would be infested everywhere, and people were complaining. And then so you can't send in somebody to walk the beach, empty the barrels, and the barrels are leaking, and you're on my towel, you're on that. There was so many complaints. Then we figured we put it at the end or have a dumpster, which was worse. So back then it was the not clean energy, but the clean city who
Mhm.
went around, and Patty Emerald and that group that does, and Pal, who does a great work. They put everything on. They made the signs. They decided, they cleaned up, and they wanted carry in, carry out. It was like in the back early 2000s, and it started working. You know, people all around. I'm now had the North Shore Chamber, sorry, not the Boston, actually is doing a survey for me, asking how many beaches you can carry in, carry out. Manchester has it. Do you have barrels at the end of the boardwalk? Where do you have them? But a lot of people, because of the environment, are doing carry in, carry out. Sometimes in the beginning, we gave out bags, recycled bags, so they can take it with them. As far as like Stage 4 Park, someone says, well, why don't you just have a dumpster? But there was a dumpster behind the cupboard, and that, you know, people put their own stuff through. So as far as putting, what would we do is if we had a couple of barrels, let's say at the quarries, what would they be filled, and when do you expect to be those picked up? Are we going to get calls from you, Val, saying the barrels are full, the barrels are full, the barrels are full? Or, you know, do we pick them up just once a week and then it's not enough and we want that? And don't forget, we don't have, the DPW are not trash pickers, and they're not trash removals. We hire people to do that, which is an extra cost for them to come out.
Yeah.
Do we have to put that cost in the budget? You have to figure that out. Or do we leave bags for citizens and let them know? And we've done that with the yellow bags everywhere. So, you know, it's something that and it's disgusting. It's like, what do we do? Because if we don't, they're making a mess anyways. We're picking it up and we have to call the DPW. So we're looking at that. What's the best practice? Where do we put it? Do we put like a small one someplace and just let the residents know? So when they clean up, they can just dump it there? Because you know what, Val, we have so many people in the city, you yourself, you know, with the little, you know, filling in the I don't want to, well, I'll say it, the little doggy poop, little baggies there and everything else. We have a great community that everyone cleans. There's a person who right now on Saturday was always at the down at Witham Street. He still does it. There's so many people that go out and clean, and you have a great group that go out and clean too, and they clean it all the time. It's just that, you know what? When you have these huge parties, I mean, and then you see, and they get angry because we stop their parties and they're hiding in the woods, we can't find, and then they spray paint everywhere. You know, the spray painting, and that's not graffiti. That's not murals. That's not beauty. That was disgusting, you know, and that's not fair. And then, you know, who's going to repaint it? You did, you know, the people did. I mean, it was scary. I mean, you fall, if one of our staffers fall, I mean, or what's going to happen? It's just this. It's every day there's a new thing. I'm going like, okay, do we need broadband? Can we just put cameras? And then just like they do to us, just put all over social media saying, there you go. Where's your mother now? You know, I don't know. Well, that's our amendments. You can't put cameras because that's my right. Well, you know, what am I going to do? You know, it's like, that's my right for you to enjoy what we have, but not destroy it. It's frustrating. It really is, because it's not just happening at the quarries, Stage 4. The trails, everywhere they, you know, it's like, I didn't get a chance to take my granddaughter yet. And, you know, she's only 6. I want to enjoy things with my granddaughter. You know, I want to be able, this is the time that I do the walking, and you see it. And how do you explain to a little girl that, no, what is all that? What do you say to her?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
I have to go, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Val, let me know for any other questions.
Okay.
email me and I'll get them to the answers.
Okay, super. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor.
All right, I'm going to ask one last question, and then we will summarize. This person who is anonymous, I noticed that the Cape Ann Trail Stewards has information about Lanesville Quarries on their website. I also noticed they have an extensive social media network on Instagram. Do you think this will result with more visitors to the quarries? I'll answer that. And I'm happy that Nick Holland is on the call. He chairs all the Cape Ann Trail Stewards, and they do a great job. So I believe that the major fundraising that was done by the Cape Ann Trail Stewards was for the road race. And everyone that is a trail steward participates so well in this community to do the right things with cleanups and trailblazing, and they all have a different assignment in all of our woods, not just Dogtown, and it's amazing. I know the steward that works right here in the New England Forestry, and she is just amazing. And I believe that they do so much for this community, and I am really proud of them. And I really don't have a feeling that when they post that things are beautiful on our trails, that's creating a line of visitors coming into Gloucester. So I know that this person won't agree with me on that, but I feel an obligation to say thank you to the trail stewards. And I hope that even though you might not like my answer, I wanted to make that comment. So thank you. So I think we've done all of the questions and answers, and I want to ask that we take the last slide, Chris, so we can wrap up. Thank you. So what next? First of all, the survey data will be collected until March 31st. And the compilation of the data will be communicated to city administration and made public. So you'll see all the questions, comments from everybody. Recording of today's forum will be available on the city website at www.gloucester-ma.gov in the past remote public meeting sections. So you'll have an opportunity to see that. And from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you to panelists, including Mayor Safathia, Chief Conley, our CAO, Nicole Keyser, and Assistant CAO, Chris Sucaranza. Chris, you were a standout in helping me pull together this survey. And I truly appreciate your hard work and partnership, and as well as Nicole in helping organize this. And of course, historian Les Bartlett. Les, you're so special to the Lanesville community, and your input and your desire to do what's right in this community is just contagious, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you all attendees for your input and suggestions. I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to discuss some of the concerns that we have, and let's keep the good spirit going. To Les's point, if you're feeling negative about something, let's try to do something positive. Let's organize a cleanup. Let's look at more best practices and communicate it to folks like me and Les and the mayor and whatever. You know, I mean, we want to keep this positive because this community loves what we have, and we want to keep it going. Let's work with open space and recreation. This committee is back really meeting a lot now. It's and I think we can do some great things together because we all have passion. We all know what we love, and we're grateful to live in this community. That's why everyone wanted to be here last summer. So thank you all. I truly appreciate it. And thank you. The meeting had up to almost 60 attendees, and I know a lot of people will look forward to watching the recording. So thank you all so much for your commitment to our beautiful city, and have a good night.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you.